Hello everybody and Merry Christmas! Twinkle lights everywhere! So this is going to be the video explaining the new curriculum for this up and coming year. I did have a meeting this last Sunday and I know not everybody was able to attend it because it's, Christmas week. And for those of you who were there, if you're watching this, I feel like I was all over the place. My brain was going 1,000 different directions that morning and I had a really hard time explaining things in an orderly fashion. So hopefully this will be a little bit easier of a time explaining things on video format. I just want to go over how I envision the curriculum to work and also just a few little details that I'd like to add into the curriculum. And I also would like to explain how I'd like the flow of the classroom to be, particularly for K through 5th when we go into the new classroom. But I think a lot of that will be best learned in person and on the job because it's a little bit more difficult to explain it through a video. So hopefully this will explain everything fairly well. And one update before I get started, the carpet in K through 5th should be going in today, which is December 21st, very exciting. And my goal is to be in that classroom the week after next Sunday. So it'd be the 2nd of January is when we will start in there. That is subject to change, but I'm really hoping that that's not the case and that we can start in there. Even if the classroom's not totally ready yet, it'll be just great to be in that classroom. And yeah, so without further ado, I will get started on explaining the new curriculum. All right, so, ta-da! It's beautiful. So if you haven't heard already, we will be using Grace curriculum. This is the curriculum that John MacArthur started at his church, Grace Church. I believe it's just called Grace or Grace Community Church. And it's super solid. It's gospel centered. It goes from Genesis all the way through Revelation, and it goes over a period of 3 years. So right here I have 3 books. They're all year 1. So there's year 1, book 1, book 2, and book 3. And once we're finished with this, then I can purchase the year 2, and then after that, the year 3 section of it. So this will be what we will be using for the year 2022. I'm very excited about it. This is the teacher book. I got, 4 copies of each one. So I have 12 of these total. And 1 copy will be in each classroom. And I will also have a copy should we, misplace one or just need an extra one for whatever reason in the office upstairs. So these will be available for you to use during class. It's going to make everything very streamlined, very easy to follow. And my plan is, much like I've been doing for the past several years, I will be scanning these documents to you guys so that you can study them at home. I prefer these to stay at the church. In the past, I've let them, go home with people if they needed to read them or anything. But just to make sure we keep them and don't lose them, I'd like to be keeping these at the church. And I'll just be scanning the pages necessary for the week's lesson and sending them to the appropriate volunteers for that week. So yeah, this is going to be what we're learning. And something that I do not have a physical copy of, but rather a digital copy, the curriculum comes with coloring sheets, with worksheets appropriate for preschool all the way up till 5th grade. And there's also some activity sheets, coloring sheets, and crafts. That's the other one. So there's also craft sheets as well. Every single lesson comes with each of these things, and you're welcome to use any of them. They will be made available to you, but I would prefer right off the bat, if you would like to use any of the worksheets, any of the coloring sheets, and any of the crafts, that you would let me know beforehand so that I can print those out for you. I'd rather not print out a bunch of stuff and then have it not get used. I don't want to be wasteful because a lot of this is on paper, and paper does cost money and it adds up over time. So if you could let me know ahead of time, preferably the week that you're starting, the week that you're going to be teaching, and no later than that. If you're going to need materials, let me know. But you're also welcome to use your own idea of a craft or a game that you would like to use for the class. It's just up to you on how you would like to structure that. every book is the same as far as how it's laid out. So I'm just going to use year 1, book 1 as an example. So this will actually be the first lesson that we're going to be using for the year. So when you open up the book, there's going to be this front page, and it's going to give you just a basic overview of how to use this curriculum book, how to study the lesson, what each section is trying to promote. So that's just something to look over on its own. When you turn to the next page, it will give you a list of all of the lessons in this book. So we start out in this particular one, Genesis chapter 1, and we go all the way through Genesis 39. I believe year 1 goes to the book of Numbers. And then we have our very first lesson. This is going to be Genesis chapter 1. God created the heavens and the earth. It has some very cute visuals. If you want to, you can use this teacher book as a visual for the kids so they can see. I know that kids learn really well with that. So on this first page, there's going to be the central truth of the message, and every lesson will be laid out the same way. There's also going to be the key verse. My idea is that this will be the memory verse, because I do plan to bring back memory verses officially and permanently. I know we've started and stopped that several times. It just hasn't worked out very well, but we are going to start that, and I'll explain that later in the video. Some of them are more simple, so I might just revise this to add another verse for maybe the older kids, but I think this will be especially great for the preschoolers. Very simple, short verses so they can remember what they're learning every week. There's also a section on supporting truths right here. So for example, truth number 1, God created everything. God created everything with the power of his words. God's creation was very good. God existed before anything was created, and God rules over his creation. So it just will lay out the things that we want the kids to know that are true from the scripture being taught. There's also a list right here of objectives of the book. There's list several things that God created. Tell someone in your family about the power of God. Find 3 times Genesis 1 calls creation good. So it just gives you prompts for the kids to really start getting their brains going. Like once they've paid attention to the lesson, or if they paid attention to the lesson, then you can kind of quiz them a little bit and get their brains really working on that. All right, so on the next page, there is going to be a lesson summary. So this is just a very short paragraph of what the kids are going to be learning for the day. This is a very important spot right here, the gospel spotlight. That's what I've been calling it, spotlight on the gospel, but I'm going to call it the gospel spotlight, and that's going to be something that we're going to be doing every single week so the kids know, okay, it's time for gospel spotlight. And I'll explain about when that will be brought up a little bit later in the video, but every single lesson has this, and it's very key that we teach this to the kids every single week. Something else that I really like about this curriculum is that every single lesson, it shows what you learned the week before, what you're learning this week, and what we're learning the next week. So it's connecting every single lesson together so that the kids will have better memory of every lesson, and they can use it to connect the gospel to each lesson. So there's that, and it even lists the little verses down here so they know how to find it. Side note, I am going to be purchasing new Bibles for the classes, particularly K through 5th, and then maybe a couple for the preschoolers, but that's mostly for the teachers to read from. But I really want to encourage that the kids read in the Bible. I know not all of them can read, and there's different reading levels, but I know some of them can, and it's really good practice to get them in the Word. I also want to start encouraging parents to have their kids bring a Bible to class. And if they don't have one, I want to be able to help them get their first Bible, because it is so important to be actually studying the Word, and not just on every Sunday, but to have them studying this with their parents at home and reviewing the lesson. So I just really want to encourage that while these lessons are being taught, that at some point someone in the class is reading a scripture, or maybe everybody turns to the Bible and one person reads out loud, or maybe just the teacher reads out loud, because I don't want to make kids do it if they don't feel comfortable with it. But just a side note, make sure you're reading from the scriptures and not just from this book. So when you turn the next page, there's going to be a full 2 sheets of commentary on the lesson. This is literally like gold right here. So my suggestion for particularly the teachers, but also the helpers, would be to read the scriptures, the verses that will be for the lesson, and then go through this commentary, and it will give you new ideas, maybe something that you didn't quite see when you were reading it just on your own, or maybe there's something that doesn't quite make sense, and this will really help break it down, especially for kids, because they need harder terminology to be broken down, harder concepts to be broken down. I know that sometimes I have a hard time understanding something, you know, we all know that. Adults don't even know the full depth of the Bible and what it means sometimes. So this is really a helpful resource right here. There's also little bubbles right here, and they're called Think About It. So it's just something that you can think about yourself, or maybe you could tell the kids the prompt and they'll have something to think about too. For example, we can make things with our hands, but only God can create with his words. So that just shows the power that God has, that he just speaks things into existence, where we can't necessarily do that. We have to actually use our hands to do it, but God can just speak it into existence. So have them think about that. Or naming something shows personal ownership. Like, I would never even think to write that in a curriculum. So I think that's really interesting to give those little prompts. So this is going to be a really good resource to help study what you're going to be teaching to the kids. On this next page, I'll start on this side. This is going to be where we start with the outline of the lesson. So again, this is kind of like Pastor Rob's notes, what he does on Sunday mornings for himself to follow, or Pastor Dan or whoever. They always have like an outline of notes. This is your outline, and it's already done for you, so it's fabulous. It's really neat because they break it down into age group. So on top, there's going to be an outline for the preschoolers, and on the bottom, there's an outline for the K through 5th graders. So it's a little bit more detailed and lengthy for the older kids, but it's very, very well laid out. And then coming around on this side, again, this is probably one of my favorite things. I've always been a very big advocate for asking questions to the kids, because they are so smart and they have sometimes the coolest answers. And this curriculum comes with questions already written down for the kids. And again, they're broken up into age group. So for example, for a 3 to 5-year-old, you could ask, who created the heavens and the earth? Or how did God create the heavens and the earth? And there's an answer to it, just in case you don't know. And then for the K through 5th, what existed in the beginning? So that's a little bit more in depth. Like, was there anything? Was there something? How did it get there? If God existed before the creation, where did he come from? Like, I've asked that question before to kids, and it is fabulous, the question or the answers that they come up with. They're really, really bright. So this is going to be a really great resource as well for the kids. So the next section in this curriculum, I had mentioned earlier that there are coloring pages and activity pages and a craft, and those 3 tie into this next section of the curriculum. So much like the last couple pages, there are different sections for the age group, but this time it's broken up even further. There's ages 3 to 5 here, ages 6 to 8 over here, and then you flip the page and there's ages 9 to 11. So they break it down even further. I'll just go over one section, but they're all laid out the same. It's just age appropriate curriculum. So it's divided into 3 sections. There's introduce, illustrate, and apply. And later in the video, I'll be explaining how the routine of the classroom will go, and it'll include those 3: illustrate, or what's the first one? Introduce, illustrate, and apply. So introduce are basically ideas of introducing the lesson. It's not necessarily teaching the Bible verses, it's just getting their brain flowing with a concept that has to do with the lesson. And I will use this as an example. So this is for preschool. They have circle time. Ask children the following questions about God's creation. Using their answers, explain how all of creation shows the greatness of God. So the first question is, what is your favorite kind of animal? Love that question, especially for 3 to 5-year-olds. They love answering that question. What is the biggest animal you can think of? Or what is the smallest animal you can think of? So it's just something to get them thinking about creation, and then you loop that back into how we're learning about creation today. There's usually 2 options in each section, so you don't have to do all of these. These are just options. You don't even have to do like all of this. They're just available for you. So there's going to be plenty of stuff to do for the 1.5 to 2 hours that you're going to have these kids. There's also like show and tell. That's a fun one. And I'll just give examples from the other age groups too. So for 6 to 8, there's the days of creation. And this would be for the teacher. Bring in various objects that represent each day of creation. Reveal the objects one at a time to children in random order. And ask children if they know on which day of the week God created each object. So again, it's something just to start talking about what you're going to be teaching. And I'll give one more example for the 9 to 11. How about we'll do this one on the bottom, beginnings. There are many ideas of how the world came into existence and how life began. Ask the children to tell you about some they have heard. List the ideas on the board. What do the children think about each one? Tell the children that in today's lesson, we will learn the truth about how life began. So just some cool examples of how to introduce the subject of what we're talking about today. And in this case, it would be creation. So next is going to be illustrate. So this is something that's a little bit more either hands-on or visual for the kids. So for preschool, we'll do Let There Be Light. Turn the light off when you talk about the darkness of the earth. So turning off the light, it gets dark, it gives them a visual of what it's like before the earth had light. Turn the light on when you talk about God saying, let there be light. Let the children say, let there be light, as you turn the lights on. You may also turn the lights off during the evening and on during the morning. Instead of using lights, you may ask children to open or close their eyes whenever morning or evening is mentioned. And that's also a good idea too, this particular example. That means they'd be paying attention whenever you say morning or evening. That gives them something to pay attention to, because we all know kids ages 3 to 11, it's still difficult for people to pay attention, especially in class. So that gives them something to do. So the next section is apply. This is typically a craft. For the older kids, I don't think they have as many crafts. It's more like a game. So for 9 to 11, this is the Days of Creation game. And it just gives you a game to play. And usually you just need a couple materials that are usually at the church already. Of course, if there isn't something, then you can always let me know. But in the craft book that we have, which is the digital copy of the craft pages, I would just print those out. And there's usually like a little picture of what they would do. Like this is a creation cube. So it's a piece of paper, you cut it out, make it into a cube, and each side has a day of creation. And you can use that to play a game if you wanted to. Or for the preschoolers, there's a little chart here, little paper chart that you cut off. When you turn this paper around, it'll show the different days of creation. So just some really good things to use for teaching the kids the lesson, not just spitting out a lesson and reading straight from the Bible. Not that that's not important, but also using these things to help them understand what the lesson is all about. So that is a brief overview of each page of what the lesson will look like. Now I'm going to go over the routine that I like for both preschool and for K through 5th. They're going to be somewhat similar, but the preschool will be a little bit more routine, I guess you could say, because they do need routine and consistency in order to maintain attention. So I'll start with the preschool first, and then when I get to the K through 5th, I'm going to be going through the routine as if we're in the new classroom. So if we're not in the new classroom by the time we start this, we'll just have to deal with that. But that's going to be my vision, is what the new classroom will be. One big classroom, K through 5th, all combined. I will email this. This should have been emailed to everyone. This little sheet. I've made one for K through 5th as well, but again, just going to start with preschool. So this is a routine that I made for each class. I will be hanging this in each classroom so that you can follow along with the routine of the class and know what time things are happening. Some of these things are more or less flexible of when they happen. A lot of this is simply so that there is something to follow and you're not just making it up on the spot, especially if someone's not comfortable doing that. Not everybody's okay with just improvisation, so this will just be a good guide to have. Some of these things are set in stone though, so I'll go through each one of them. So if you look at the first one, 9:50 to 10 a.m. in the morning, that's when I would like volunteers, all helpers and teachers, I would like them to be there at 9:50, and those first 10 minutes will be for you to set up the class how you'd like, get any last minute things ready if you need my help for something, going over the lesson plan with the volunteers. That'll be your time. Children are not allowed to be signed into class until after that. So that is your time to set up the class. You can get there earlier if you want, but I feel like 10 minutes should be enough time, especially if it's been prepared enough. So 10 a.m. to 10:20, that will be when kids will most likely be dropped off and signed in. So 10 a.m. is when they're allowed to start, and then typically there's a few stragglers right after church starts, so to 10:20 is when people will be signing in their kids. This is just when, again, parents will drop off the kids are signed in. This is a good time for free play, like the kids are able to play with either whatever they want that's available, or maybe you have like Play-Doh set out and like, okay, now it's time to play Play-Doh, now it's time to play with the kitchen set, maybe something specific like that, or there's musical instruments. It's up to you. And then I also have this highlighted memory verse. This is also going to be a time when the kids can recite the memory verse. For preschool, we're gonna do like one verse per quarter so that they memorize one verse for the quarter. I don't think they need to do every single week like the bigger kids, but I'll explain memory verses again at the end of this video. But this will be a time to come in, and if they've memorized it, they can tell the teacher, and that would be the time for that. So there's that. And then the next 5 minutes, 10:20 to 10:25 approximately, will be an introduction to the day. So this is an example of what you can do. Circle time on the mat. So I have a mat on the floor, a rug, and there's about 20 spaces, I think, so each kid can sit on whatever space they want. And you can welcome the new day, say good morning to all the kids, ask how they're doing, are they excited to be in class today, just, get them excited about class, and briefly talk about today's lesson, like today we're going to learn about this or that. And that actually might be a really good opportunity to use one of the introduction sections in the curriculum. You can use it later too, but that might be a really good time to get the kids' brain started of like, okay, what are we going to be learning today? What's your favorite type of animal? Like, let's start talking about this. So this next section is something that will be happening every single week. We are going to be doing worship with K through 5th and preschool again. We used to do this almost 2 years ago now, since before COVID, where the K through 5th would go to, and the preschool would go to another classroom to do worship together. Now we're going to be doing worship in the K through 5th, the new classroom as a whole. So from 10:25 to 10:30, that'll give you approximately 5 minutes. That'll be the time to wrap up whatever discussion you had with the kids on the circle mat, get them all in a nice straight line, and they're gonna walk over to the next classroom, and there'll be a line for them to stand on, and we're going to do worship together with the K through 5th graders. So 10:30 is when worship will start. We're gonna start no matter what. I mean, we'll give you a couple minutes if you're late, but that's when we're gonna be starting is 10:30, and we're gonna give that 20 minutes, 10:30 to 10:50. We're gonna do approximately 4 worship songs. I'll have a DVD or a CD that will show hand motions to different songs. It's gonna be so much fun. For those of you who weren't here before when we did that, it is a blast and the kids love it. So we're gonna be starting that again. And we usually have some prayer time as well, and I'll ask the kids a couple questions to get their day started. So for preschool, after worship is over, they can leave in a nice straight line back to the classroom, and they'll begin class again. So earlier, if you did not already do the introduce, this would be the time to do the introduce section. So I have that listed in nice big letters there, introduce. So this could be at the table in the classroom, or this could be on the carpet. That's up to you with whatever you would like to do. That will take approximately 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what exactly you're taking from the curriculum. And then around 11 o'clock or so, it's important to read the verses. So go over the lesson, have some commentary about it, go over some lesson questions, and make sure they are 3 to 5 year olds, so make sure that they're constantly moving from section to section quickly. If they're getting a little antsy, do some stretches in between. If they need to take a quick little water break or something like that, that'd be a good time to do it. But make sure that they're always moving, and make sure that they are still paying attention and not running off to go play. There is a set play time, and it's not when the lesson's happening. It will take some time to get them into routine, but I already know that since we've reopened preschool again, the kids that have been coming have been doing a lot better each week of understanding this is a time for learning and not for playing. Although learning can be playing, can be a lot of fun. So after you go over the lesson questions, it'd be a really good time to do illustrate. So that's the more visual and hands-on learning and applying to the lesson. It's a great time to do some coloring pages. It's a great time to do worksheets. And I'm gonna maybe put it on the screen, the different types of coloring sheets and worksheets that we have for preschool. And if it's not on the screen that I couldn't figure it out, I'll just email it into the email. It's also great to use the coloring sheets to reinforce the lesson. So if you're doing one on creation and there's all these animals, you can point to the coloring page, like, oh, what's your favorite animal? Did you know that God created the zebra to have stripes? Like, little commentary like that with the kids, so they understand the coloring sheet is not just for fun, it's also a learning tool. Next is going to be apply. So again, see the curriculum for the apply section. And it's a great time to review with a question about the lesson. So again, brings them back to the lesson. And it's a great time to get ready for snack as well. So this whole section I went over from after worship till now, you can really be creative with how you want to lay out the class. There's several different options of what to do in the curriculum, and it's up to you how you lay it out. This is just a suggested way to do it. So up until then, now it's going to be snack time. I would prefer if snack time is at the end of class, so that way it's something to look forward to after the lesson, so they're not distracted and getting crumbs everywhere, and then you have to clean up and then start the lesson again. So snack time will be primarily after the lesson is pretty much complete. So I gave about 5 minutes for snack time because 3 to 5 year olds, they don't eat a whole lot. So I figured 5 minutes will be enough to give the snack, eat some snack. If you need a little more time, no worries. And side note, always double check on the sign-in sheet if they have food allergies, especially if they are kids you do not know. We should have allergy-friendly snacks available at all times. So once snack is over, it's important. Oh, pray over your snack too. That's a great tool to do. Pray over your snack. After that, it's great to do some cleanup time. I think it's great that the kids practice throwing away trash, putting toys away, all that sort of stuff. I do want to mention though that there are people who are supposed to come into the classroom and clean up the classroom. That includes vacuuming or mopping, cleaning the bathroom, and wiping down the tables. You're welcome to do any of those if you would wish to, but you're not obligated to. There should be a cleaning team designated to do that. But the little things that they can do, picking up little bits of their snack, putting away crayons, putting away toys, that's something that they can totally do, and I highly encourage that so they understand not everyone is there to just clean up their mess after them. They need to be responsible for that. After cleanup time, I think it'd be good to have another circle time, so sitting on the mat, just asking another quick question about the lesson so that they're ready to go, and going over the memory verse. For them, it might be the same memory verse as the last week because they're the little ones. And finally, this is the most important thing right here, Gospel Spotlight. The Gospel Spotlight, every Sunday after class, the kids have to hear the Gospel Spotlight. Again, that was in the curriculum on the first couple pages. Go over what the lesson has to do with Jesus. If the kids don't know that the lesson connects to Jesus, there's a big opportunity missed there. So please go over the Gospel Spotlight. Alrighty, so next is the kindergarten through 5th grade class schedule. So unlike 2 years ago, the class will still be like it is today, combined K through 5th, but there will be some separation during the class so that the kids can work with their peers. So to begin, 9:50 to 10 a.m., that's when I want the volunteers to arrive so that they can set up the classroom for what they need, get any last minute materials, ask me any questions, etc. But I would appreciate if they were there. Kids cannot be signed in before then. 10 o'clock is when that can start officially. So if they're trying to get signed in, to say, hey, we're just setting up real quick, come back at 10 o'clock. Real quick side note, if you have not heard already, we will be dropping off children to the classroom and signing them in there. They will no longer be joining in the worship service with the adults. I was kind of sad to have that happen because I really enjoy having the kids in there, but for a variety of reasons, I think it would be easiest for everyone if they were just signed in to class right away instead of that. So 10 o'clock is when that is an option to start. The sign-in process will still be the same. It's just going to be in the classroom. So 10 o'clock to 10:20, that is when that will be happening most likely, because some parents, they show up a little late, so give it a 20-minute time period or so. I have it right here. Kids drop off. Kids are signed in the class. Free play, that's kind of how we used to do it. They could play with Legos or Play-Doh, or they could get started on their coloring sheets, whatever they would like to do to start off the day. Something that's new that, again, I said earlier in the video that I'll explain in a little bit is the memory verse. The first 20 minutes of class, this will be the time when they first get into class that they pull aside one of the volunteers and they can recite the memory verse from the week prior. This will be the perfect time to do that. If it doesn't happen for a couple kids in the morning, that's fine. They can do it at another time in the day when is appropriate for you, like when you think it's a better time. But this is when I would like to do it, in the morning, so that they can just say it right away, get that off of their chest, and then they're good to go. Again, I'll explain that in a little bit more in detail. So, second, 10:20 to 10:30. I will have the kids sit into their seats. There is going to be somewhat of an assigned seating. I haven't figured this out quite yet, but just so that kids can have a new place to sit every week and they're not just sitting with the friends that they like to talk to. I want to give grace and have people sit with their friends, but if there's an issue, they cannot sit the whole class, just so that there's not a big distraction. So I was thinking that there's going to be big tables with maybe 5 or 6 kids at each table, and they will be labeled like table 1, table 2, table 3, table 4. And when they come into the class, we'll give them a table assigned to them. Again, I'll probably have more details on that once the classroom is set up, but for now that's just my idea of it. So they'll find their seat. There'll be a K through 2nd side and a 3rd through 5th side. It's going to be like how it used to be as far as the sides go. So room 2, K through 2nd, room 3 is going to be 3rd through 5th, but again, all one big giant room now. So they'll find their seats, and then there'll be a quick overview of last week's lesson. You can use the curriculum to go over that. Remember the little bubbles at the beginning where it says, last week we learned this week we learned this, next week we learned this. So just to give a quick refresher so that way it connects to today's lesson. And then get ready for worship. So that's all about 10 minutes or so. Finding seats, going over last week's lesson, and getting ready for worship. If you didn't watch the last section of this video, the worship is going to be in class again, like I said, not with the adults. So at 10:30, worship will begin. And until that point, it's when you can get ready for worship. There's going to be places for the kids to stand. And it'll be like in a little line, like on the ground, like a piece of tape they can stand on so they know where to stand. And the preschoolers will come and join K through 5th like they used to, and we're all going to have worship time together with the DVD playing the motions to different songs. The kids can come up and they can help lead worship if they wish. There'll be 3 spots for that. So that will begin at 10:30 and it will go for approximately 20 minutes. I think this is also a really good time to do a group prayer if any of the kids want to pray, or whoever's leading that day will pray over the class. So that's going to be 20 minutes, and then preschool will leave. After that, I would like the kids to go back, or no, actually not go back to their seats. I'd like them to sit where they're at on the ground and just be. Something that I explained in the preschool part of this video, which is an option here too, during the section of going over last week's lesson, if there's some time, it's also a really good opportunity to do the introduce section of the curriculum. That's not necessary to do during that time, but it's optional if you'd like to. Otherwise, right after worship is when you would be doing that, the introduce section and the illustrate section. That is up to the teacher and the other volunteers how they'd like to structure that. And I would like the K through 5th graders to be together for some of the lesson plan as far as what the lesson is and reading the scripture together. The part that I would like to do separately is specifically the lesson questions. Remember, in the curriculum there are age-appropriate questions for each group. So at that point, I would love for the K through 2nd graders to go sit at their seats on their side, and the 3rd through 5th graders to go sit at their seats on their side. And while they're going through these questions with one of the volunteers, they can be doing worksheets, they can be doing coloring sheets, they can be doing activity sheets, and those are provided with the curriculum. Or they can be doing something else like playing with Play-Doh and maybe making an animal because it's creation day. Or they could be, doing some sort of a group activity together. It's up to the teacher, but the resources are here available for you. And this is my idea. So right now, currently, our structure for class is having 3 volunteers per K through 5th class. Ideally, I would love to have 4 again, 2 teachers and 2 helpers. And my goal would be to have, when the class splits up, is 1 teacher goes over here, 1 teacher goes over here, and they help lead the question discussion part of the lesson time. And then the helpers can go in between and help where needed, help the children, help set things up. Maybe if they're doing well on their own, the helpers can get snack ready for later. Stuff like that. So that's what I'd like to do in the future. Currently, we have 3 people in class with 1 teacher. So I'd like it if another person would just be able to step up and take over, just going over some discussion questions. It doesn't matter if it's 3rd through 5th or K through 2nd. They're not necessarily needing to teach anything, especially if they're not comfortable, but just to, use some of the questions that are available and get the kids thinking. That's what I'd like to do. If for some reason we only have 2 volunteers one day, we'll just have to really work that out. I know it's possible, it's easier if there are more volunteers so that we can really give the kids the best attention that we can give them to get the lesson across to them. So that aside, that's my vision for it. We're just gonna have to take each week as it comes because we are still short on volunteers. But we'll make it through. The Lord has provided thus far, and I'm not worried about it. So, anyways, I'll go over that one more time. So divide the class after the main lesson has been presented to the class. Go over worksheets, coloring sheets, and the next section is apply. So in the curriculum, there's the apply section, which is usually a craft or a game. If the teachers and the other volunteers, if they would like to, and it works really well, I'm totally okay with combining the class for a craft or a game. If it makes more sense, they can totally stay separate and do their own thing with their own peers. But I know that it's also fun to come together as a class and play a game or do a craft together. That's up to you guys. This next section though is going to be together. So the kids can either stay at their seats and just listen from afar, or they can all come together in the middle of the classroom and sit on the ground like in the beginning. At 11:35, that's the goal time, just so we stay on track. 11:35 is when I would like all the kids to gather for the gospel spotlight. So this is when one of the teachers will say, hey, did you guys enjoy your lesson today? What did you learn? Let's wrap it up. Here's the gospel spotlight, and here's what it has to do with our lesson today. So go over the gospel spotlight message, which is in the first couple pages of each lesson. And then, very important as well, review the memory verse for the following week. So there's going to be a new memory verse each week for the K through 5th graders. It's going to be a little bit more advanced than the preschooler verse, maybe like 1 or 2 verses or just a lengthier verse. So gospel spotlight, the memory verse, you can use different tools to help the kids with the memory verse. I also didn't mention this earlier. I'm going to print out a memory verse so that the kids can take it home every week. They can put it on their fridge, put it in their room, wherever they want to, practice it with their families. That's going to be up to them on if they take care of that or not at home, but that's going to be an option for them to take that home. Lastly, approximately around 11:45, it's usually when church gets out. I would say around 11:45 to 11:55 is when the sermon usually ends. So that will be a time to clean up the classroom, clean up the tables, and have snack time. So I'd like to have snack at the end. That way, if the parents come pick them up and they're still eating snack, they can just go and eat snack. But that's when I'd like that to be done. I explained this again earlier in the preschool video, but if you did not watch that, there is a designated team at the end of service to clean the carpets or the tile floor, whether it's mopping or vacuuming, and then cleaning the tables and taking out the trash. That should not be the teacher's job. If you want to do it, that's totally fine. I'm not going to stop you, but there is someone to do that for you so that you don't have to stay and clean up after the kids. What I do want the kids to do is make sure that their tables are just tidy at least, like get extra crumbs off the table or put the crayons away or put the toys away. They do need to take responsibility for cleaning up after themselves, and it's not just adults, but it is a service for other people to clean the classrooms and keep them clean. That is the goal ultimately. We are in a shared space, so it's not guaranteed every week at this point, but I'm hoping that eventually we'll get into a routine where it's clean to begin with, starting Sunday morning. Okay, lastly, I just thought of one more thing that I want to share with you guys. I know this sounds kind of depressing and it's sad for the kids for sure, but I'm gonna ask that we don't go on the playground during class anymore. I just think that there's way too much available in this to not keep them busy for the time that we have the kids in class. So I don't think it's gonna be a big issue. I mean, I have trouble thinking, how are we gonna condense this into an hour and a half of study time? Because there's so much to offer for the kids in here. So I'd prefer if the kids don't go on the playground. The biggest reason is because we don't have a fenced-in area it's harder to keep track of the kids on the playground, especially when they're running around everywhere and we're trying to assign them out to the right parent. I know we're a smaller church, so it's easier to keep track of the kids, but should we grow, which is the hope that we would grow, especially with new parents coming in, I want an easier way to keep track of the kids and to sign them out in a way that keeps everyone safe should the worst happen. I don't ever want the worst to happen, but it's just easier to keep track of the kids when they're sitting in their seats in class, eating their snack at the end of class, and then, a parent comes in and you match the kid to the parent, then you release the kid to the parent. It's just a little bit more seamless that way. And I really don't think it's going to be an issue with the curriculum we have because it's so detailed and there's so many options of what you can do. That being said, I'm not gonna, be a tyrant if you have to go to the playground, just let the kids run free for a little bit. It's not the end of the world. But I would just prefer if they would be signed out of class, at the end of class inside the classroom. So we'll try to keep it that way if possible. All right, so next is the memory verse section. I know that I've tried and failed over the last couple of years to start memory verses, but I really want to stick to it this time. It's not been as much of a priority with a lot of other stuff going on, but I want to make it a priority because it is really important to memorize scripture for several reasons, but it is something that we need to have, I think, back at the church. I think they used to have it years ago, so we're going to bring it back starting at the beginning of the year, and I just want to go through how I envision it to go during class. So from 10 o'clock, the time the kids are dropped off, till about 20 minutes later, 25 minutes later, when the kids are being dropped off, that is the time frame of which I want the kids to come forward if they've memorized the scripture and say it to a volunteer. They don't have to say it in front of the class. They can just say it to one of the teachers or helpers that day. And it will be according to what the lesson is, what the verse will be. I will give them, or whoever will give them, a little sticker. I believe I have some stickers somewhere. Stickers. So little tiny star stickers. There's going to be a memory verse chart. The kids who are here frequently, they're going to be more of the frequent attending kids at our church. They will have their name on the chart, and there'll be a little guest section if guests will come and they're not sure if they're going to come to the church or not full time. But when they memorize a verse, they'll get a star next to their name, and we can keep track of how many verses they've memorized. This will also encourage the kids to do this because some of the kids are motivated to do that already. Some of them have never memorized verses before, and they don't know that we're serious about this. So when they see the other classmates doing this, I think that it will encourage them to really want to do that at home, so they can start tracking. If they skip a week, they can try it again the next week, or they can just start from where they're at. Not a big deal with that, but they can put their sticker on there. Once the kids have memorized, I think it was 12 weeks worth of scriptures, so that's a quarter or 3 months worth of scriptures. I think that's 12. 3 months, 3 months worth of scriptures. I want them to be able to have a little prize for what they've done. So I'm going to have a little prize box filled with little knickknacks that they can choose from. If I haven't decided this yet, but I believe I want to have at least 10 kids. If 10 kids memorize all of them back to back to back, and if they're sick a week and they do it the next week, that's fine, but back to back to back, they've memorized 12 verses altogether, then that will earn them a little class party. That way there's group incentive to it, so they can, help each other out to challenge them to memorize the scripture, but also individually they'll get a little prize at the end of each quarter from the little prize box I'll have. For the preschoolers, this is for K through 5th, by the way. For the preschoolers, it's going to be the same, except that each quarter they will have a verse to memorize. So it's not going to be changing every week. because at that age, they really need repetition to memorize things. So if they are given a full 3 months, that's approximately 12 weeks to memorize one verse. That's perfect, I think, for their age group. Some of the kids might be able to do more, and that's great, but we'll just give them one verse a quarter. And, if the big kids, get their little prize with doing 10 kids for 12 weeks, all the scriptures, we can have a little side party with the preschoolers. But they can also earn incentive, like once they've memorized the scripture, they can get a little prize. So that'll be fun for them to do as well. And you know what? If it seems like they're just off the walls amazing at memorizing scripture, maybe we could go for preschool, one verse a month. I'm not as familiar with what they can memorize. I'm sure they could do once a month, but for now we'll just do once a quarter, or one verse a quarter. But I will have the memory verse posted every week on a whiteboard. I bought a specific whiteboard to put the memory verse up, so that way it's there and they can see it and they can read it and get ready for it for the next week. And then they will have a chart next to it and they can put their sticker on. So I'm also going to be, I think I mentioned this already, but just in case I didn't, I'll be printing out the memory verse for the kids to take home, so that way their parents know this is the memory verse of the week. They can help practice with the kids. And yeah, so that is that. If there are any questions on that and how that works, please let me know. But just remember, at the beginning of class, when they're first dropped off, that is when you're going to be giving them an opportunity to say the prior week's memory verse. And at the end of class, when you do the gospel spotlight, that is when you'll be going over the next week's memory verse. And throughout the lesson, you should have probably been saying it a couple times already, because there's like a main verse for each lesson, so they should have already heard it a few times. If for some reason you don't get to a kid or a couple kids in the morning for their memory verse from the week before, you can find a time in between class to do it. It's no big deal, but that's going to be the designated time for it. The final thing that I'm going to go over that I did not get to go over in the meeting on Sunday is this guide. So the volunteer training guide. Some of you, this might look familiar because I made this almost 2 years ago, right before COVID started, and it was brand new. I passed it out to everybody, and I've had to rewrite a good amount of it just so it's updated. So I will be emailing this to everyone. I was going to print a copy out, but maybe it might be easier for you guys to have it digitally. But if you'd like, let me know and I'll print you one out so you can just see it. I'm also going to have a copy of this in each classroom. We're going to have, I have them over there. I have some blue binders. Each classroom will have a copy of this. So if you lose yours or just want to reference it at the church, you can have a copy. I'm just going to go briefly over each page, and then on your own time you can flip through it and read it on your own. So the first page is just, first page is just an introduction of children's ministry. You can read that on your own time. Second page is a table of contents, very important. I love those. Mine's not stapled either, so it's a little flimsy. So this first section, teachers and helpers. This will just give a description of what a teacher and what a helper does for each class. Some important information on that. Transitioning to a teaching role. Nobody starts off as a teacher unless they love teaching and they're qualified for it or whatever. But you can become a teacher, how that works. So this is teachers. Oh, yeah, this is teachers. Okay, this one's teachers. This section is on 6th grade helpers. Please read over that on how 6th grade helpers work. I'll be working a little bit more on this in the new year on getting that organized. But for now, this is just the vision, so go ahead and read that when you have a chance. And 6th grade and up, not just 6th graders. Class schedule and etiquette, very important. Just some information on how you should be in class, how the kids should be in class, There's a section on nursery. We unfortunately don't have nursery right now, but this will be for when nursery is coming later. Just like I showed at the beginning of this video, these class schedules will also be printed in here. So that's another place you can see that. There's a section for K through 2nd, 3rd through 5th. Again, here's that section. There is a section on worship and how the worship will work during class. And there's also a brief section on the Sunday school curriculum, where we got it from, why we use it, how we use it, that sort of thing. And information on materials for class, like if you should need anything for a craft or a game. Information on snack time. Just want to reiterate, no nuts allowed in the classroom, just in case a kid were to have a severe allergy. Currently, I don't think we have any severe allergies, but we do have a couple sensitive kids to nuts. And we also encourage, if you do want to bring a snack to class, that's fine, but please check in with me first of what it is, so that way I can approve it for the class. That would be appreciated. Next, classroom management and discipline. I'm still learning about this myself, but if you need any pointers on how to run a classroom, there's just some stuff that I've picked up along the way and have also grabbed from other volunteer training guides that I've seen before. So that's really important. Examples of consequences, and what discipline does not look like, because we are taking care of children and we want to make sure that we're covering all our bases and we're not doing anything that's going to be beyond what the parents should be doing instead, not us. Meeting with the parent about the child's behavior. So it goes over some behavioral stuff if there's a kid who needs a little bit more extra attention and they're struggling in class, what to do about that. Cleaning. Again, I went over that a little bit in this video, but there's a section for cleaning. Safety protocol. I still do want to have like a safety training day, but for the time being, this is just a simple guide on some safety issues. There's going to be how to check in, check out. Bathroom procedure. Please go over the bathroom procedure if you haven't seen it already. It's very important. We have a lot of rules regarding that. How to look for child abuse. Child safety policies again, and if a child gets injured during class, the protocol for that. There's also going to be in the back of this basic first aid training. This is going to be anything with allergic reactions, EpiPens, seizures, burns, all sorts of stuff. Most of the time we've never had to actually use this information, but should the time come, it's here, it's available for you to learn. Bee stings, nosebleeds. There's also going to be a sheet right here in the back for the radio. We're currently looking for some new radios for the classroom, I think, because they don't work anymore. But eventually we will have a radio system so that you can call in the security team should something bad be happening, and you can just quickly call them. There's a list of phone numbers that you can call. If you don't know Russ Headings, he's the head of the security team at church, so he's on staff there for that. And then also a little sheet on earthquakes and natural disasters, and what to do, what the safety protocol is for that. So all of that information will be in this little training guide, and it will be for you to keep and to look at if you need to reference anything. So that will be a very helpful thing indeed. The very final thing that's going to be in that blue binder are these incident report papers. So if something were to happen to a child, whether that's an injury to them, or maybe something happened, I don't know, like verbally something was wrong, or I don't know, just something incident related. This is the paper that you're going to want to fill out. This will be in that blue binder, and you'll have to fill this out, and then we'll hand this in to one of the pastors at the church. So please look for this should that situation arise. So far that has not happened, at least not with me being there, but that will be available for you. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for watching this video and sticking through the whole thing. It's a lot of information, and it's going to take time to learn how the new routines work, the new curriculum works, but I know that if we're consistent with it, that it's going to be really beneficial for all the volunteers to just know how the thing works, and it's also going to be extremely beneficial for the children so that they have routine and they're not having to be bounced around from classroom to classroom anymore, bounced around from different routine to different routine, because it's been very sporadic over the last couple of years. So my goal is that 2022 will be a year of learning routine and getting it down. That way when new people come in, it'll be just seamless. So thank you again for watching, and I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas. I love you all so much, and yay, Christmas is here. Woohoo! Love you guys. Bye-bye.